A couple of years ago, Toyota unveiled a mysterious concept car. Known as the GR GT3, it made no mystery of its intentions: to race in the most heavily subscribed GT class in the world. Toyota mentioned the car's race debut would be sometime in 2025, quite a bit of time after the 2022 reveal. The debut was delayed to 2026, but the point still stands. Toyota has become serious about customer racing. Prepare yourself for a torrent of feather-fin conjecture. Toyota/Lexus is no stranger to GT3 racing. Their current machine, the Lexus RCF, has been officially homologated since 2017, though pre-homologation versions had run in Super GT as early as 2015. The beauty of GT3 is that almost any automobile body style with two doors can run, technically. The GT3 eligible car just needs to fit within the performance balancing window and be based on a model that sells at least 300 units annually. With the thin rule set, mid-engine supercars can race against front-engine sports coupes can race against naturally aspirated Porsche 911s at just about the same pace. I mention this because the RCF is the modern equivalent of one of those American personal luxury cruisers from the last century. It's big, heavy, and meant to eat miles down the highway in style. Converting it into a full-blooded race car was a difficult task. Somehow, Toyota racing engineers were able to shave off 1,000 pounds and get the air around the car to move out of the way quickly enough to be a viable race car. What needed less help, however, was the 5-liter 2UR GSC engine. A naturally aspirated V8 breathed on by Yamaha, the engine already put out close to 500 horsepower in road car form. GT3s run somewhere between 500 and 600 horsepower, values the engine can reach easily. They increased its size by 0.4 liters just for good measure. RCF to race in Europe, the US, and Japan, but not in large quantities. When the RCF GT3 debuted, Lexus had a weak customer support network for its race car spirit compared to its competition, so the car would do most of its running in its home markets of Japan and the US, being quite successful in the latter. All hail BOP! The RCF road car is heading towards the sunset pretty soon, and Lexus' couple of partner teams don't run around a car old enough to go to school if it was a human. Also, let's just say that there's a reason that it took 2 years for the car to fit within the homologation performance window. Its weight, around 1,300 kilograms dry, large frontal area compared to its competitors, and just not being built on a sports platform leaves the RCF relied on favorable BOP to be competitive. A new vehicle is needed. The first hint that Toyota is taking its new GT3 project more seriously was Team Rookie running in the Mercedes AMG GT3 and Super Taikyuu instead of an RCF. Team Rookie is run by Akio Toyoda himself, so whatever the team learns from the AMG, it applies to the new machine. The AMG GT3, on the other hand, is probably the best GT3 on the market. It combines a blend of pace, ease of maintenance, and drivability. Anyone from a CEO seeking thrills to Mauro Engel can turn competitive lap times with it. Up front is the 6.2-liter M119 V8, unassisted by turbos. Mounted far back in the chassis, this torquey mill is under little stress as it transfers power to a 6-speed sequential transaxle in the rear. The large engine has a wide power band, allowing the driver to do whatever they want with it without the engine bogging down. This setup, long hood, short deck, and transaxle, is the archetypical front-engine rear-wheel drive sports car layout, evening out weight distribution and giving balanced handling. These qualities have allowed the car to invade nearly every GT3 series like Fleckos have done in tropical waters. Of course, Toyota will want to take notes from it in order to improve future products. Akio Toyoda has even gone on record saying that he admires the car, so why not make a better version with the family name on it? Lexus, as of now, also lacks a halo car. As a competitor to the big luxury brands, this is hurting the brand's prestige. Auto brands build prestige via motorsport, and Lexus has much less history in motorsport than its parent company. Lexus's most notable motorsport achievements at the moment are the aforementioned RCF, its Super GT entries, and the LFA's Nürburgring development. I'm aware that Lexus's competition has had a 30-year head start on existing and all, plus Toyota's almost always competed as themselves throughout most levels of motorsport, leaving less room for the Lexus brand. Part of this is the lack of suitable cars to be used in competition. Most of the current Lexus lineup consists of SUVs and luxury sedans. As of now, the RCF and LC series are the range toppers of the lineup. Both cars are on their way out, and the latter is far too heavy and slow for GT racing, let alone fighting Porsches and BMWs on the road. Please ignore the GT300 LC500H that's actually a competent race car. The previous statement was partially for rhetorical reasons, and I think the GT300 version is deformed looking. It also doesn't have very much LC500 left in it. Lexus did have a halo car with the LFA a decade ago, but it debuted too soon or too late to be appreciated when new. It was also made obsolete performance-wise by the Nissan GT-R. It's not a great thing for an aspirational luxury brand's most prestigious product to be a decade out of production, so a replacement for all three cars is on the way. The GR GT3 needs to be based on something after all. Why didn't Toyota just use the Supra instead of building a whole new car for GT3? They have one running in GT4, and GRD6, the Supra to new Lexus makes a nice ladder. GT3 regulators like their prestige brands that can pump out hundreds of cars a year. Furthermore, the Supra's future is in doubt after 2026 thanks to slow sales. Therefore, they're building a homologation special road car themselves to fill in the gaps in the top of Lexus's range and provide a customer racing spearhead. Auto enthusiasts love their homologation specials. Very little is officially known about it, but it's set to debut in 2026. It may be known as the Lexus LFR, as Lexus patented the name sometime in 2022 for a new model. Apparently, it'll be a turbo V8 hybrid supercar. Where it stands on the supercar hierarchy is unknown, but rumors swirl of at least 700 horsepower hitting the pavement. The GR GT3's chassis is also rumored to be shared with the production version of the electrified sport concept from Lexus, but whether all those electric concepts Toyota showed off were red herrings remains to be seen. After all, Toyota doesn't see a battery electric vehicle future, nor do I, and greatly prefers hybridization. The patent raiders and testing footage showed the car resembling the GR GT3 concept, but it lacked the big rear wing. It even had the side exhaust of the racing concept, which is pretty rare on a road car. Speaking of said concept, that's what you're here to hear about, so let's get into it. The first thing that leaps out at you when you see the GR GT3 is its classic long hood short deck design, much like the AMG GT3 that may have inspired it. A large grille opening gulps cooling air for the engine, which I'll get to later. Jutting out in front of the grille is a large splitter, raised gently in the middle to reduce pitch sensitivity. Together with the new Toyota corporate lights, the front end gives the impression of a samurai mask or a large cat ready to pounce. You can also see the outline of the Lexus Predator grille. The front splitter appears to be doing a lot of work, as prototype-style vents just past the front wheel wells allow air to exit the wheel well and splitter area. Furthermore, All 4 fenders sport louvers to bleed off pressurized air from the wheel wells, increasing downforce. At the rear is a sizable wing with swan neck mounts, cleaning up airflow under the wing. Below said wing is a set of vents below the taillights. These echo the LFA's vents for that rear-mounted radiator, reducing frontal area and improving rate distribution. Could the GR GT3 have the same treatment? The prerequisite these days diffuser sits between the rear wheels, sporting 4 strakes. Overall, the GR GT3 concept looks like Toyota's interpretation of what a front-engine rear-wheel drive GT car should look like. It's long, covered in vents, and has the corporate faces. What more could you want? If the previous analysis seemed a bit rushed, that's because it was. The only job of a concept car is to look cool. Who cares if it functions, as long as it looks like the car company's engineers are getting paid enough? So why waste time analyzing a styling exercise? The second reason that the analysis was kind of rushed is the GR GT3 has been spotted testing on 3 continents. Despite the camouflage, I'll still try to give my armchair explanation of what Toyota is trying to do with their new homologation special. Like most race cars, the GR GT3 is rumored to be built around the carbon fiber monocoque. This normally wouldn't be worth mentioning until you remember that carbon tubs are rare in road cars, and the Lexus LFA had one. This does wonders for weight saving and chassis stiffness, but it's not cheap. This implies that this thing's road version is pretty upmarket. It's also equally likely that the new car has an aluminum monocoque with carbon bodywork, which is cheaper, but the construction is a bit heavier. After all, part of the reason the LFA sold like hot cocoa in August was its Lucas price tag, partially caused by its fancy carbon chassis. The car has moved under its own power for hundreds of miles, so let's discuss the engine. It's a cross-plane V8 of some sort, which makes a nice throaty roar. It sounds slightly higher pitched than the RCFs, but that can be down to exhaust layout. Take a listen. Lexus also tested a new twin-turbo V8 intended for future cars and an LC500 race car at the NLS. Could this be that engine? Several successful GT3s use twin-turbo V8s like the Aston Martin Vantage and Ferrari 488. Some footage does allow you to hear weird noises under deceleration, but those could be tire, not turbo noises. It's also likely that the TUR GSE is mounted up front. It's a well-proven engine that's taken Lexus to victory lane more than once. If the GR GT3 does have the TUR up front, it echoes its inspiration in eschewing the road car's power plant for a proven naturally aspirated option. The rumored hybrid of the road car has a 99% chance of not being on the race car. There are no signs of a hybrid in the race car's testing footage because there is no electric pit launch or extra lights. Hybrids are disallowed in most GT classes barring Super GT's GT300, and it would add extra complexity for customers. However, nothing in the FIA GT3 rules as of 2024 says anything about a hybrid unit. Toyota's been pushing hybrid racing since the mid-2000s, so perhaps they waited until they were legal to develop this car. Up front, the AMG-style trapezoidal grille is still present, as well as traces of the 2020's Toyota light bar. This gaping bass maw beats the radiator and the engine. We know the radiator is indeed front-mounted thanks to the huge honking hood scoop placed similarly to a whale's blowhole. You can see the forward-angled radiator quite clearly from above. Most race cars with front-mounted radiators angle it forward somewhat to reduce frontal area. The opening is split in two, probably to send the hot air over the car at a favorable angle. Warm air has higher pressure, and downforce comes from the art of channeling air pressure gradients, high above the car and low below. Flanking the hood scoop are a pair of NACA ducts. Whether they cool the brakes or a pair of turbochargers is unknown. Since they're barely in front of the front tires, you can assume the former until further notice. Small single dive planes adorn each fender, instead of the sizable stacked pair on the Concept. GT3 cars are disallowed from swapping aero packages for each race. Since GT3 cars visit Le Mans now, developing a package that's strong on all circuit types is even more important. The splitter still has the same basic shape. Above the dive planes lie a pair of endurance lights. The road car test footage shows them more clearly than what you see with the race car footage. Above the front tires are a set of steeply anchored fender louvers. Perhaps the shape generates a vortex or something, as most fender louvers I've seen on race cars are a bit more flush with the fender, or the shape that's more high pressure air free from the wheel wells. I don't know, I'm not a wind tunnel. Speaking of wheels, the rubber surrounding them has varied throughout testing. The presentation model sat on Bridgestones. Most SRO GT3 series run on Pirellis, WEC uses Goodyears, and IMSA cars are on Michelin shod. The GR GT3 used the latter when spied at Spa. As a carbon for GT3 series worldwide, data from every common tire brand is important to have. After all, they're the only part of the car that's supposed to touch the track. Just behind the front wheels lie the exhaust and front wheel well vents. The latter clears air from the engine bay, front wheel wells, and front underbody diffuser and helps channel it down the sides of the car. You can see this in action in some of the spy footage as the spray from the wet track follows the car's flanks pretty closely. Speaking of which, the flanks are much more sculpted than what's on the Concept. There's an upwards character line blending into the hips, adding much more visual weight to this area. This is a styling feature that the misshapen Lexus GT300 needs. Atop the rear wheels and neatly blending into the end of the character line are another pair of scoops in a similar position to the ones that cool the LFA's transmission. The AMG GT3 is a transaxle, much like this car is rumored to have. It's likely that the racer's transmission will be a 6-speed paddle shifter sequential by Aisin AW or X-Track. Toyota owns Aisin, so less stuff to outsource, so X-Track is the leading manufacturer of competition gearboxes. For some reason, GT3 cars seem limited to 6 speeds despite the road cars they are based on and lower GT classes having cars with more speeds. Perhaps my age and time exposed to race cars may have something to do with this, but I think 6 speeds is the ideal number for long-distance circuit racing. With more speeds, you can keep the car in the power band more easily, but the gears have to be made thinner and the gearbox could be enlarged. There's also the matter of additional parts to brake, as well as more annoying shifting for the driver. Fewer gears mean that it's harder to keep the car within the power band as it goes through the gears, since you have to increase their spacing or top end speed. 6 appears to be the sweet spot of shift frequency and gear width in racing. The road versions likely have an 8 or 10 speed automatic transmission. Furthermore, the vented rear window is removable, implying that there is some quite important mechanical bits back there. That section of the car is probably in a low pressure zone since it slopes down slightly, so hot air from the rear flows out more effectively. In all of this yapping, I failed to mention the suspension, but we can assume that it's double wishbone front and rear like 90% of the top level race cars throughout history. Along with the transmission, the fuel tank sits in the rear. Where else would it go? Its location is good for weight distribution. Wait, Toyota's making a purpose-built GT car with the fuel tank in the trunk space. Where have I seen this before? Rear aero is dominated by a sizable diffuser and single-element wing on swan neck mounts, just like the Concept. This wing looks like a more stylized version of what's on the GT500 Supra, a car that produces LMP level downforce. What's good enough for that class has to be good enough for GT3. There's about 24 holes in each wing mount, allowing for fine adjustment of rear downforce balance for all sorts of circuits. The diffuser strakes are greatly reduced in size, and the diffuser itself appears to flare out at the exit slightly, unlike in the Concept. The vents below the taillight were retained, possibly as a callback to the LFA despite the car's front-mounted radiator. With all the venting to the rear, the air needs to escape somewhere. Another new feature that the Concept didn't have is a Viper GTS style ducktail spoiler. Can't go wrong with a ducktail spoiler on a GT car. It's probably there to smooth the airflow leaving the car and energize the rear wing's flow. Overall, the car appears to be a more extreme take on its AMG potential inspiration. Expect to see a race for the first time at the Daytona 24 Hours in 2026, though it wouldn't be surprising to see it run in the NLS or Super Taikyu or Super GT beforehand. That's basically it for technical analysis until Toyota says something. We know, they know, we know the car's been testing. Now let's get into this car's significance for Toyota and the future of the GT3 category. Since Akio Toyoda has taken the crown of leadership within the company, the brand has been adding to its rich motorsport heritage at a rate not seen since the 1990s. One of the main things that new Toyota likes to do with the sporting models is design the race car, then work backwards to make it a road car. They still believe that motorsport is a laboratory for improving all of their production models. So far, this appears to be working, with the new GR sports car series being highly sought after by enthusiasts. However, this race car first approach reminds me of another important car in Toyota's motorsport history, the TSO20 GT1. The TSO20 was made to exploit loopholes in the LMGT1 rule set as hard as humanly possible. Its appearance in the GT1 category was a sign the class was cooked, as the kids say, and implosion was imminent. While all the other GT1 manufacturers tried to pretend that their cars were suitable for street use, which was a huge stretch, Toyota only made minor changes to their race car, slapped the license plate on, and called it a day. One GT1 road car was built, which was quickly put on museum duty. The TSO20 was blisteringly fast, scoring 2 pole positions and an equal number of class victories. Both classes the car competed in would die the year after. A classic example of the sports car cycle. A new category is formed, manufacturers join, manufacturers spend a ton of money developing cars, those wanting for resources get priced out and or the cars become dangerously fast, then the class fizzles out. Wonder why GT3 is so successful? Part of it is that strict homologation rules, amateur driver requirements, mandated customer sales, and balanced performance keep manufacturers from just putting extinction devices to dominate the field with. Over the past few years, GT3 cars have become ever faster as technology improves, and the desire for rich amateur drivers to have a shiny new race car to drive every 5 years or so is constant. Today's GT3 cars produce the downforce and Le Mans prototypes near the turn of the century, and turn laps as fast as 2000 GT1 cars with BOP. The last car to run afoul of Stefan Vettel's ideal for the class was the Cadillac ATS VR, a car intended to crush Pirelli World Challenge as a factory effort. The car ran for a year before it was outlawed, as GM didn't want to build customer cars. Vettel implemented a rule mandating that each manufacturer build at least 10 cars their first year and 20 the year afterward. No factory team needs that many spares, so the prospective manufacturer has no choice but to sell cars. The GR GT3 is the first GT3 car to be designed as a race car first. Furthermore, this race car is being built by the largest manufacturer in the world with tons of data from the Lexus RCF and Team Rookie's AMG. It's going to fight for victory day one, unless the world's most unfair BOP is applied. Whatever road car spawns from the GT3 is clearly less important to Toyota, as international GT3 racing is one of the few nuts they have yet to fully crack, as the RCF was a very compromised car and was saved by its drivers and battery relevant racing. The road car's name is just a rumor, as the race version collects thousands of testing miles, hoping to avoid the new car issues that have plagued every GT3 in their first year. Hopefully, the restrictions on GT3 keep the GR from nuking the class, but each new car seems to cost over $500,000 these days. I don't expect the GR GT3 to be any different. This latest crossover GT3s look more like JAF GT300 race cars than anything, and this GR GT3 seems to be the tipping point. If the GR GT3 is a cut above the rest of the category, what's everyone else going to do to compete? Make more advanced and expensive race cars to complete the sports car cycle? It's up to the FIA and SRO to keep the GR GT3 on a leash design-wise. Perhaps the extreme nature of the GR may be its selling point, as all the other GT3 cars pretty much come from premium brands and will sell because they're race cars with a famous, usually European badge. Why get the BMW M4 GT3 when you can get the Lexus that looks less bulky, has a V8, and doesn't have the hideous or goofy sniffer grille? BMW customer support and the funny propeller badge on the front are the main reasons. The European luxury brands have a decade of experience selling high-end race cars to customers that Toyota is still building. When you buy a Porsche, a Ferrari, or what have you, you're getting access to their engineers, spare parts when you need them, and factory drivers in case you want to compete in the big races. Good thing that Toyota Gazoo Racing has a base in Germany to cover the European front, and TRD can cover North America. Spares likely won't be an issue, world's largest automaker, and Toyota is building a factory driver infrastructure with the GT4 Supra, the GR86 Cup, and the domestic series. This may be why the car debuts 4 years after its unveiling, and improve the customer racing foundation even more, and fix the repeated issues of race and road versions may have. After all, Toyota's reputation is built on reliability and value. I'm confident that the GR GT3 will turn out to be a great race car. The road car should provide front-engine V8 GT thrills that grow rarer by the year. Keep your eyes on automotive news to learn more. And that's about all I could gather from spy shots and conjecture about Toyota's new GT3. New race cars don't come around every day, especially ones that are a mysterious SSGR concept. Will this become a recurring channel topic? Let's see how this one does and get back to me. If you want to see more videos in this style, check out B-Sport. He's an actual engineer who owns a first generation Viper. You know what to do when you want to hear about vintage fishes and sports car racing. This is an Adontis Man signing off. Adios.